There is a day that appears on everyone's mental calendar. It is the most popular day of the year. It is not Monday. It is not Friday. It is called someday. Someday, I will start investing. Someday, I will feel ready to retire. Someday, when the market crashes and things calm down, I will finally buy in. We treat someday like a real destination. We view it as a solid point in time, a coordinate on the map of our lives. We convince ourselves that if we just wait long enough, if we just let the clock tick a little longer, we will naturally arrive at this magical place. A place where we finally feel rich enough. A place where we feel prepared enough. A place where the anxiety of the modern world melts away and we are finally ready to take action. But I am here to tell you the brutal truth. Someday is not a day of the week. You will not find it on any calendar ever printed. Someday is a graveyard. It is the place where dreams go to die. It is the place where millions of people bury their financial freedom, shovel by shovel, excuse by excuse, until they wake up at 65 years old and realize they have run out of time. My name is Brock, and today we are going to expose the someday lie. This is not just a video about saving a few dollars. We are going to perform an autopsy on the psychology, the mathematics, and the philosophy of procrastination. We are going to dismantle the biological wiring that makes you terrified to start. And I am going to show you why now this exact, uncomfortable, imperfect moment is the only time that actually exists. Let's start with the psychology. Why do we procrastinate on our financial future? Why is it so easy to buy a $1,000 phone today, but so physically painful to put $1,000 into an investment account for tomorrow? It turns out this isn't because you are lazy. It isn't because you are bad with numbers. It is because of a fundamental glitch in the human brain. A psychologist at UCLA named Hal Hershfield conducted a groundbreaking study using fMRI technology. He wanted to understand how we perceive time and identity. He put participants into an MRI machine and asked them to think about different people. First, he asked them to think about themselves today. The self-processing center of the brain, the medial prefrontal cortex, lit up like a Christmas tree. It was active. It was emotional. It was visceral. Then, he asked them to think about a stranger, someone like Matt Damon or a random person on the street. The brain activity dropped instantly. The emotional centers went dark. The processing became cold and detached. But here is the scary part. When Hershfield asked these people to think about their future self, the version of themselves 10, 20, or 30 years from now you know what happened? The brain did not light up. The emotional centers did not activate. The brain scan looked exactly the same as when they thought about a stranger. Neurologically speaking, you do not see retirement you as you. You see him as some random old guy that you have never met. You see him as a character in a movie, not the person staring back at you in the mirror. This is why saving money feels so painful. This is why it feels like a loss. When you save money today, your brain does not register it as a gift to your future self. It registers it as a theft. It feels like you are taking money away from yourself, the person who wants a steak dinner and a new car right now. You are handing that money to a stranger you don't know, a stranger you can't see, and frankly, a stranger you don't care about. This phenomenon is known in behavioral economics as hyperbolic discounting. It is a cognitive bias where the brain values a reward now massively more than a reward later. To your brain, a steak today is worth 100 points of dopamine. A steak next year, that might only be worth 5 points. A steak in 30 years, that is worth 0. Now, in the Stone Age yin, my Earruth's wiring made perfect sense. It was a survival mechanism. If I killed a mammoth and I didn't eat the meat today, it would spoil. Or worse, a saber-toothed tiger might eat me tomorrow. The future was not guaranteed. Hoarding resources for 30 years didn't make sense when the average life expectancy was 30 years. But we are living in a biological mismatch. We are running Caveman software in a modern hardware world. You are probably not going to be eaten by a tiger tomorrow. You are probably going to live to be 85 or 90 or even 100. And let me tell you something about that stranger in the future. Future you is going to be very hungry. Future you is going to need shelter. Future you is going to have medical bills. If you treat future you like a stranger, you are committing a slow-motion robbery. You are looting the resources of an elderly person just to buy gadgets you won't care about in 6 months. You need to bridge the gap. You need to visualize that old man in the mirror and realize he is not a stranger. He is the person who will pay the price for the choices you make today. Now, let's move from psychology to mathematics. Because if the psychology of someday is tricky, the math of someday is absolutely terrifying. We all know about compound interest. We have all heard the quotes about it being the eighth wonder of the world. But very few people actually understand the cost of delay. Let's look at a case study. Let's take to Caveman. We'll call them Early Earl and Late Larry. Early Earl is smart. He understands that time is his most valuable asset. Earl starts investing at age 25. He isn't rich, so he invests a modest amount, $500 a month. He does this for exactly 10 years. Then, at age 35, life gets chaotic for Earl. Maybe he has kids. Maybe he loses his job. So Earl stops investing completely. He never puts another penny into the market. He just lets that initial pot of money sit there and grow for the next 30 years until he turns 65. Now, let's look at Late Larry. Larry is like most people. Larry suffers from the someday lie. At age 25, he says, "I'm too young to worry about retirement." At age 30, he says, "I have too many expenses right now. I'll start later." Larry finally wakes up at age 35. It is the exact day that Earl stopped investing. Larry realizes he is behind, so he gets serious. He starts investing $500 a month, and unlike Earl, Larry doesn't stop. He invests every single month religiously, from age 35 all the way to age 65. So, let's recap the effort here. Earl invested for 10 years, Larry invested for 30 years. Larry worked 3 times harder. Larry sacrificed 3 times longer. Larry put 3 times more capital into the system. So, at age 65, assuming an 8% average annual return, who has more money, most people think Larry wins. He put in more money, it seems only fair. But the math doesn't care about fair. Early Earl wins. At age 65, Early Earl has roughly $787,000. Late Larry has roughly $680,000. Earl has over $100,000 more than Larry, despite doing a fraction of the work. Larry worked for 3 decades, sweating, saving, and sacrificing, only to be beaten by a guy who quit while he was still young. Why? How is this possible? It is because Earl held the one asset that you cannot buy, you cannot borrow, and you cannot steal. Time, the first 10 years of compounding are worth more than the next 30 years combined. This is because the money Earl put in at age 25 had 40 years to double and double and double again. Larry's money only had 30 years. This is the someday tax. Every time you say, "I'll start next year," you are not just pushing the timeline back. You are lighting the fuse on your wealth. You are burning the most potent fuel your portfolio will ever have. Waiting 5 years to start doesn't mean you retire 5 years later. The math is not linear. Waiting 5 years might mean you have to work 15 years longer to catch up. Or worse, it might mean you retire with 50% less money. Someday is expensive. In fact, for most people, someday is the most expensive word in the English language. So, we know the brain fights us. We know the math punishes us. So why do we still wait? Usually, it's because we are waiting for the perfect moment. We treat investing like surfing. We are standing on the beach, clutching our surfboard, staring at the horizon. We see waves coming, but we say, "No, not that one. It's too choppy. Not that one. It's too small. Not that one. It looks dangerous." We are waiting for the perfect wave. We are waiting for the promotion. We are waiting for the kids to finish school. But most of all, we are waiting for the market to crash. We look at the stock market and we say, "It's at an all-time high. I can't buy now. I'll wait for the dip. I'll wait for the crash. Then I'll swoop in like a genius and buy everything cheap." Let's talk about market timing. It is the biggest lie in finance. It is the arrogance of thinking you can predict the future. There is a famous study by Charles Schwab that looked at 20-year periods of market history. They compared different types of investors to see who won. They compared perfect timing Paula, a mythical investor who had godlike powers. Every single year for 20 years, she received $2,000, and she managed to invest that money on the absolute lowest day of the market for that year. She caught the bottom perfectly every single time. Then, they compared her to immediately invest Ibn. Ibn didn't look at the charts. He didn't read the news. As soon as he got his $2,000 on January 1st, He invested it. Sometimes he bought high, sometimes he bought low. He just bought who won. Of course, perfect Paula won. But do you know by how much? The difference in their returns was negligible. It was less than 1 to 2% difference over decades. The perfect timing that everyone stresses about, the hours spent watching CNBC, the anxiety added almost zero value compared to the guy who just closed his eyes and bought. But there was a third person in the study, waiting Walter. Walter kept his money in cash. He was waiting for the big one. He was terrified of buying at the top. Walter got crushed. While he sat in cash waiting for the crash, the market went up 100%. Even if he eventually bought a crash perfectly, he missed the elevator ride up. He missed the dividends. He missed the growth. The data is crystal clear. Time in the market beats timing the market. Historically, the stock market spends about 70% of its time at or near all-time highs. Waiting for it to drop is like waiting for your children to stop growing before you buy them clothes. You are fighting the natural trajectory of things. The perfect moment does not exist. The market is always scary. In 2008, it was scary because the world was ending. In 2012, it was scary because of the double-dip recession. In 2020, it was scary because of the pandemic. In 2024, it was scary because of inflation. If you wait for the fear to go away, you will wait until you are dead. The only way to win is to invest through the fear. So, we know the psychology, we know the math, we know the timing doesn't work. Why do we still feel not ready? It is because of a psychological trap called the arrival fallacy. This is the belief that once I make it to X, then I will be happy. Or, once I make it to Y, then I will be ready. We believe that once we reach a certain milestone, $100,000 salary, getting completely debt-free, buying a new house, we will suddenly feel adult enough to invest. We think that money will just pile up in our bank accounts, and we will finally have extra. But the goalpost moves. It always moves. This is Parkinson's law. Work expands to fill the time available. In finance, it is expenses expand to match the income available. When you make $40,000, you struggle. When you make $100,000, you think you'll be rich. But when you get there, you buy a nicer car with a $600 payment. You move to a nicer apartment with higher rent. You start shopping at Whole Foods instead of Walmart. This is lifestyle creep. You will never feel like you have extra money. Even millionaires often feel like they are living paycheck to paycheck because their lifestyle has inflated to match their millions. If you are waiting until you feel like you have surplus cash, you will wait forever. You have to make the money extra by hiding it from yourself. You have to automate it. You have to build a dam before the river flows. You have to set up the transfer to happen on payday before you even see the money. You have to treat your future financial freedom like a tax something that is taken out, whether you like it or not. Let's end this not with numbers, but with philosophy. Because at its core, someday is not a financial problem. It is an existential one. Let's talk about Seneca. Seneca was a Roman Stoic philosopher. He was also one of the richest men in the Roman Empire. He served as the advisor to Emperor Nero. He understood money, and he understood time. 2,000 years ago, he wrote a book called On the Shortness of Life. In it, he wrote something that cuts through the noise of the modern world, like a knife. He said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. Life is long enough, and a sufficiently generous amount has been given to us for the highest achievements if it were all well invested. But when it is wasted in heedless luxury and spent on no good activity, we are forced at last by death's final constraint to realize that it has passed away before we knew it was passing. We act as if we are immortals. We treat time as something cheap. We waste hours scrolling on phones. We waste years in jobs we hate. And we waste decades waiting to start living our lives. We say someday, but someday assumes you have unlimited days left. You don't. There is a concept called memento mori. Remember, you must die. It sounds morbid, but it is actually life-affirming. It is the ultimate antidote to procrastination. If you realized that you only had 10 summers left with your healthy knees, would you wait to take that hiking trip? If you realized you only had 5 years left to secure your family's future, would you wait to start investing? We live in a fog of denial. We think we have time. But as Seneca said, you are living as if destined to live forever. Your own frailty never occurs to you. You don't notice how much time has already passed, but squander it as though you had a full and overflowing supply. when all the while that very day which you are devoting to some affair may be your last. This isn't to scare you, it is to wake you up. The someday lie is a sedative. It keeps you comfortable while your life slips away. It keeps you docile while your potential evaporates. The solution: start today. So, what do? How do we kill the lie? We stop negotiating with ourselves. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today, not tomorrow, not next week. Today, you don't need to be an expert. You don't need to be rich. You just need to be started. If you have $5, start with $5. If you have $50, start with $50. Open the account. Set up the auto transfer. Buy the index fund. It doesn't matter if the amount is small. What matters is that you break the paralysis. What matters is that you prove to yourself that you are no longer a person who waits. You are a person who acts. You need to get the snowball rolling. The first rotation is the hardest, but once it starts moving, physics takes over. Momentum takes over. Compound interest takes over. Your future self is watching you right now. He is standing at the end of your timeline, waiting for you to make a move. He is begging you to make the right choice. He is begging you not to leave him destitute. Don't let him down. Step out of the graveyard of someday. Step into the reality of now. I'm Brock. Kill the lie. Start today. See you in the next one.